For 3 seasons, Stranger Things gave us some of the scariest creatures in cosmic horror. We had plant dog people, a space spider, and, just when you thought you couldn't hate bumping into your neighbors anymore, there was this thing. But then the show introduced a face to the threat, and I don't mean Elle's garbage sinuses. Vecna is, in a lot of ways, the villain Stranger Things always needed. He helped give the show direction, a target, and a purpose beyond just survive for 8 more episodes. But at the same time, Vecna could have been so much more than a pretty face and an advertisement for sunscreen, even though, admittedly, he is aging better than half of the cast. That's why today we're going to look at Vecna, Henry 1, exploring what made him a great villain while also explaining why so much of his potential was wasted. And I don't mean wasted like he was chucked into hell for 10 years. I mean wasted as in mistakes that you as a writer want to avoid to get the most out of your story's greatest threat. From villainous reveals to heroic threats and one major lesson you definitely don't want to miss, let's dive into the Upside Down and learn what makes Vecna a villain worth writing. Also, if you prefer, there is a free Villain Worksheet available for download down in the description. Stranger Things has this habit of keeping the audience in the dark for as long as possible, and then going another episode before filling them in. It's like drunkenly watching Scooby-Doo, but with less crying. This tendency to keep a secret too long is usually a problem with story structure and Jonathan Byers' love life. But it can also be an issue with story characters. To understand character actions, we need to understand their motivations. And to understand their motivations, we need to understand where they're going. What are their goals? Even the monsters in Scooby-Doo had clearer motivations, so why not this pencil-thin pocket protector with an affinity for children? You see, dear viewer, this problem has developed with Vecna, and it's not until the 6th episode in Season 5 that the writers start to give us some insight as to what drives this floating scab with telekinetic powers. We as audience members see a traumatic event which shaped Henry's worldview, something to do with a man dying in a cave who needs to be handled with the blunt force of Boy Scout justice. Life-shaping events like these are crucial for storytelling, especially when it comes to your 2 main story drivers, your hero and your villain. We need to understand why a character does anything. I mean, without motivation, they should do the exact same thing we all do and watch Netflix for 5 hours a night, right? But the writers don't show us this. Something in Vecna's past has compelled him to act, but a huge question is, act how? What is his major goal and why? And this is a big problem that you as a writer want to avoid. In true Stranger Things fashion, we learn that Vecna's goal is to smoosh the Upside Down into our world so that he can become a demigod. So, 8 times 4 plus 7 over 40 is 97.5% of the way through the story. That is a crazy long time not to tell your audience what is at stake and what your villain wants. Bananas! Don't be like this. And look, I get it that I'm in the wrong here, because while everyone loves this show, I can't figure out why Vecna is very proactive in his endeavor to kidnap children and make them suck from his goo pump. Whatever the hell this is. And even once I know what his evil plan is, we still don't completely understand why he wants this. Let me elaborate. As a storyteller, you don't need to tell your audience everything. That's actually terrible on the opposite end of the spectrum. But you do want to tell them enough. Give them some trajectory to anticipate what might happen so that they can attempt to unravel your story before it happens. The goal isn't to make a predictable path, though. The goal is to let your audience think ahead, and you, devious little trickster that you are, can now twist the plot and catch your audience off guard. Stranger Things has never really done this. They like to keep you in the dark until the last moment, but this takes away a lot of the fun, especially when it comes to our villain. The Duffer Brothers have made it clear that Vecna will kidnap kids and do something bad with them. That is useful information. But why wait so long to divulge the ultimate plan? Why keep something as clear-cut as world domination a secret? Because without knowing what happens if our heroes fail, we can't even start to get scared. I mean, hell, maybe it's a good thing he kidnapped these kids. They seem awful, honestly. Vecna might have just been trying to save some marriages for all we know until episode 7. Who's the bad guy now? Without knowing Vecna's plan, your audience can't really decide how desperate our heroes need to be in stopping him. The best that we can do is imagine Vecna is trying to destroy the 1980s and all the nostalgia those good times entail, which is fine, but is just a very strange approach. Why would anyone want to destroy the 80s? Why would some demonic Groot care about unpeopling the Wheeler family and everyone in Hawkins? What possibly could have happened to this jacked Mr. Hanky that he wants to destroy everything and make it into a spider colony? No, please, somebody, tell me. Because just as important as a villain's desire is then why they desire it to begin with. Now, while we're told that Henry likes spiders and that he didn't like that his parents did some bad things during World War II, it doesn't explain this massive backlash for whatever injustice he perceived or what compels him to become a demigod. I mean, like, as a parallel, this one time my dad forgot to pick me up from preschool, I didn't light him on fire or anything. Yet. My reaction matched the transgression. It's a long hop, skip, and free fall into the upside down to get from parental disillusionment to world domination. So, if this affront in Henry's past isn't what made him into an evil Philadelphia cheesesteak with lips, what did? Halfway through Season 5, we finally see something that might explain why Henry is the world's most overdramatic prick. And I get it. If you like the show, I'm probably at a close second. But from a writing perspective, Henry's backstory is coming in a little too late. At this stage of the story, we've known Henry for over 10 hours. We know he wants to maybe destroy the world, but the only potential explanation I still see left on the table is whatever is in this suitcase. As a storyteller, if you want me to believe your character snapped his mother and sister like Slim Jims, faked his own death, framed his father, then proceeded to terminate a hospital for kids with alopecia before getting force-pushed into hell, then you had better give me a pretty damn good reason why. And I just don't feel like we have a good enough reason. So look, I wash the dishes and clean the floors to keep my wife happy. That's a clear and straightforward motivation and action. To keep your audience convinced that your monster is real, to make your villain believable, you need to give them a trauma that validates the reaction. Now, I will admit, it may very well be the case that Stranger Things gives Henry a solid motivation before stories end, but I am not expecting a Cerberus Snape plot twist from this show. For you aspiring writers out there, what I would highly encourage you as a writer to do is establish your villain's goal early on in their story, and then to fill your audience in with a convincing why by somewhere around the middle of your story. Are there exceptions? Of course! But, as with any character or real-life person, if you don't understand what motivates someone, you'll never know how far they're willing to go to succeed. If you don't know how far someone would fight to win, then you can't understand the challenge and stakes of the story. Which brings us to point number 2. I have a finite amount of energy, so after 3 seasons of nondescript monsters, challenges, and goals, I was running out of the strength needed to hate, which is really saying something. The gang of Stranger Things drifted around, mind-crushing the heads of the CIA, plugging a hole, lighting a rat meat monster on fire while taking down the Soviet Union. It sounds really crazy when you say it out loud. But, while these other dimensional monsters are cool in concept, they pale in comparison to what Vecna does for the story. I mean, not actually pale in comparison, this man is whiter than milk, but that's not super important, because what matters more than the SPF your villain uses is the amount of emotion your villain contributes to a story. Now, what the hell does that mean? Monsters, like we saw in seasons 1 through 3, are great for horror stories. Horror asks a very simple question. What is the price your hero is willing to pay in order to live? Death comes for everyone, except the central cast of Stranger Things apparently, so monsters, a manifestation of death, really don't need motivations. But, if we go a step further into the dark cloaca of villainy, we ask ourselves what are the things that make life worth living? Friendship, family, love, all the other happy-go-lucky stuff Stranger Things shoves down my eye holes. And if we want to do that in our story, we need our villain to threaten these values if we want to take our story from passable to impossible to put down. Vecna manages to make Stranger Things passable because he has a shared history with Elle, an evil plot that involves Max in Season 4 and Holly in Season 5, a psychedelic attachment to Will, and a weird chug-a-lug machine that threatens the children of Hawkins. He's a lot like the clown from It, feeding into our heroes' greatest insecurities, making them question their own virtue, and forcing our heroes to fall back on things like hope, love, and trust, which are all themes the show does its best to promote. Additionally, these all help boost internal character conflict while giving the story direction. These are major properties of a story which give it emotional cojones and a satisfying sense of coming full circle when the internal fears, like Will's fear of abandonment, get resolved. Having a monster that threatens your hero and the people she loves poses questions like, how far would your hero go for love? While additionally giving your audience a sense of finality when this major bad guy gets people popped. But, like I said, this only makes a story passable. A mindless monster chasing you in the woods is scary, but now that same monster chasing you and a friend reveals your character. Will you prioritize yourself or your friend? And then finally, and most importantly for the soul of a story, is what happens when your hero made the monster chasing them through the woods. Real quick, if you're having issues writing your villain or understanding where they fit into your story, shoot me an email. I would love to talk through your writing problems one-on-one. So let me clear this up real quick. Does this mean your hero needs to make the monster like in Frankenstein? No. Does it mean your hero has to be related directly to the monster like with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker? No. It doesn't even mean that the hero has to be in any way responsible for what the monster is, as we kind of get with Elle and Henry. As far as I can tell, one of the meatiest part of villain-hero dynamics is overlap. When a hero creates the monster that haunts him, this is overlap. His choices had bad consequences that he needs to fix. When a hero's blood relative is the monster, this is overlap. Our hero can't deny that part of themselves is the same as the monster they are fighting. When a villain and hero have a shared goal, this is similar because it shows our two characters value the same thing, but what differs is their inner values, what they're willing to sacrifice to achieve that goal. Stranger Things takes the fourth approach, guilt. It's not bad, it just doesn't perfectly stick the landing. And here's why. Elle feels sorry for Henry, right? Because even though she didn't make him a sociopath or make him into a science experiment for 10 years, it was her fault that he lost his nose and sounds like a wet vagina every time he moves. And this is okay storytelling because, like creating Frankenstein's monster, it places the blame and responsibility on our hero to right her wrong. The only issue I have with this is that Henry really is not Elle's fault. He was evil way before she was even born. And while Henry wants to put the blame for his skin condition on Elle, nothing she did can be misconstrued as contributing to Henry being an awful piece of crap. Great villains make a hero question their own morality. If their dad is evil, it makes the hero wonder if they themselves could be evil. If the villain wants the same thing as the hero, it makes the hero wonder if they themselves might go too far to achieve the same goal. If the villain telepathically crushes a private middle school of bullies and your hero makes sure it doesn't happen again, well, I mean, that's heroic. There's no question. This is going to sound weird, but it takes the fun out of the story because we know Elle is good. We've been reminded 3 times now that she doesn't kill. You know, unless it's some random guard just doing his job. But if it was somebody who wronged her, she's pretty chill. The same way that I never really question if any of the cast is going to make it to the season finale, I never really question if Eleven is a morally good person. Except that one time she bashed in that girl's nose with a roller skate, but come on, we've all been there. In your storytelling, find a way to make the villain cast doubt in your audience's mind. Actually, hold on. Have them cast doubt in your hero's mind, because a hero without any self-doubt is just a douche, but a hero that questions their own mission is relatably human. And that's the tragedy of Vecna. He is a phenomenal concept trapped in a story that just can't quite connect the dots. He's got the look, he's got the powers, and he's got the connection to Eleven, but he lacks the clear motivation and the genuine moral challenge that turns a good villain into a legend. If you're writing your own baddies, remember, give them a personal drive. Have them oppose the hero literally, but also internally. And for the love of storytelling, don't wait until the final 3% of your story to tell us why they're doing what they're doing. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the slime-covered psychology of Hawkins' worst resident, do me a favor and hit the like button. It helps the channel more than you know. And, if you're new here, subscribe for more writing breakdowns, character analyses, and probably more rants about why I can't just enjoy things like a normal person. If you're struggling to build a villain that's more than just an evil floating skin infection, don't forget to grab that free villain worksheet in the description. It'll help you flesh out their motives so they don't end up looking like a man wearing a scrotum. And if you want some personalized help, my email is down there too for one-on-one consultations. Let's make sure your bad guy is actually scary for the right reasons. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tolerating my bitterness, and until next time, keep writing the best stories possible.